Show your T-BAL team spirit and buy your hardworking art lab team a cup of coffee, which helps fuel purchases of high-octane equipment and T-BAL tech that get poured back into percolating, highly caffeinated content for you. Just go to buymeacoffee.com and search Therapy Bites.
On this episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Hey TBALrs, do you look at your schedule and see a forest of cluttered appointments littering the pages of your life? Have you ever been buried in a closet avalanche? Have you ever lost your children in a garage that's more like a garbage jungle? Our guest today is the queen of clean, your clutter's worst nightmare, and she's here to clean you up. Warning, beware proceeding if you're allergic to challenging thoughts, because our guest today is bringing plenty of those, along with her dustbuster, into the art lab today. Today's guest, diva of decluttering, loves helping people shift their beliefs, decluttering anything that's no longer serving them, and take action to create the business and life they desire. Sharing examples and stories from her own journey, you'll finish today's episode understanding that if Gael can declutter, you can do. T-ballers, grab your day planners, both electronic and old school, and get ready to crank up those mental dustbusters as we welcome into the art lab our own get up and get organized genie, Gael Wood, on an episode we call Life De-Cluttered, the psychology of schedule hacking. Up next on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Stay tuned following the interview for On the Couch and Off the Rocker, our special guest's psycho-silly analysis by Art Lab's own head cabbager, Dr. Ima Freudnot.
Welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing, fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the TBAL team.
Hey, Therapy Bites Art Labbers, thank you for being here today, and we have a very special treat today that's going to help you manage your life better. We have Gael Wood, a world-class life management expert and calendar management expert, and goodness, everybody knows that I need that. It's been a busy day already. And today's episode is on Life Decluttered, the psychology of schedule hacking. And Gail's here to help you hack your schedule. Gael, how did you learn to do all of this stuff in your life? I mean, I have 24 hours. It sometimes seems like I only have 19 and a half hours. And maybe you have more hours in the day than I do. How many hours do you have? 29, 30? You pack a whole 40 hours in 24 hours. How do you do that?
Well, it definitely depends on the day. I mean, like everybody, I have days where I do better with it and days where I don't do as well. But I would say, I like to be ruthless with what I allow onto my schedule. So getting rid of things is my priority.
Well, and it seems like, I've actually never thought of it that way. My wife is always saying, when you die, the first thing I'm going to do is hire a dumpster. And then I'm going to dump all this crap in it and declutter our whole house, because my theory is you can never have enough books. And I collect books like crazy. But then I also have knickknacks. But from what I've read about you, our schedules can get cluttered up with things that just, you have a word for that just kind of, what do you call it, schedule suckers or something like that?
Yeah, time suckers can just
time suckers.
Yes. And you don't realize it. So that's
they do. You just sit there and all of a sudden your day's over because the time has been sucked out of your schedule from non-essential things. But how do you teach people how to identify that?
Well, I would say the first step is to really think about, what you want more of in your life. Because if we're looking at our schedules, it's probably because we feel like something's not getting done, or we're missing out on something, or, we want to accomplish a goal and we can't find the time to do it. So I think getting really clear on what you want more of in your life and what you want less of in your life. So you could even just get out a sheet of paper and draw a line down the middle and put what I want more of in my life and what I want less of in my life. And so that's going to be your motivation for finding more time to do those things that are on your list of what's important to you.
You kind of have to start out, I would suppose, as we tell people in the Art Lab, and for those of you new to the podcast, that stands for Accurate, Realistic Thinking, Life-Affirming Beliefs. That is identifying that in your life, those things in your life that actually have value and meaning and serve you and move your life in the direction that you want to go. Do you find a lot that people really have no idea about what needs to be on their schedule and what doesn't?
Yeah, I think it's pretty common. And I think there's so many things that we do from day to day and week to week just because we've always done it that way. And it's just kind of our default. And so I think it's really fun to just kind of dig into that. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Do I even like doing this thing? Is there another way I could do it? And just getting really creative and tapping into our creativity. I know from a mom perspective, I just automatically cook dinner 7 nights a week. Well, from a practical perspective, I don't have to do that. There's all kinds of options. So I think it's just fun to really look at what we're spending our time on and does it line up with our priorities, and what are some creative ways we could do things differently, because our lives, we're all different, and what we do doesn't have to look like what everybody else does.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of, whenever people form habits. So how do you help the people that you work with overcome maybe habits they've had for years and years and years that are just unsuccessful and aren't helping them get to where they need to be?
Yeah, I think it's really just a matter of, kind of flipping the script and getting them to look at things a little differently and think about things a little differently. Mm-hmm. So, an example would be doing something that you think you don't have time to do and starting out with even just 5 minutes a day. And so that's something I like to do, is find kind of where's that tipping point where you're not going to say, I don't have time. For me, it's always 10 minutes. There's nothing I can think of that I couldn't find 10 minutes for. So that's a good way to kind of start making those small changes that then you can build upon.
And Gail, when you work with someone, you begin working with someone, I know a lot of people, it just seems like there's so many things that are just a cluttered mess. Where do you start when you work with somebody? Where do you usually get started with them?
Well, the first thing I do is really figure out, why are we working together? What are your priorities? Okay. So getting them really clear on what their priorities are, and then saying, okay, well, let's make a plan to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And that can take us in a lot of different directions.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, what's in the way? So those things. And so that it can be physical clutter. It can be beliefs that they need to declutter. It can be
cool beliefs. Yes. Hey, that's right up our alley. Decluttering beliefs. Mm-hmm. That's a new way of thinking about it. I've actually not thought about decluttering your brain from beliefs that are just in the way, that aren't serving you well. Because, and this really is opening my mind. I have to tell you, and I hope my wife's not listening to this actually, because she'll say, hey, I thought you got your mind open. What are we going to do with that? She'll go rent the big dumpster bin, But the way this is opening my mind is it really makes sense psychologically, because things that you have in your life, and when I say things, at this point I'm talking about literal, tangible things and items on your schedule. Those are only there because psychologically of a belief system that they're important in some way. And Gail, I appreciate you pointing out the patterns that we live by, because let's just take cooking dinner 7 nights a week. Well, that becomes a pattern, and neurologically, patterns are so powerful in our brains. Just think of, listeners, you T-ballers out there, how you walk. Did you know that the U.S. government can now tell who you are if they have your ambulation pattern in their system by just your pattern of walking. That is ambulation.
Wow.
You actually, it's just as specific as a fingerprint.
Oh my goodness.
They can tell this is Debbie walking through the airport.
Wow.
We are heavily patterned creatures. And let's just take this morning. It was really tough for me to do what I did this morning, which was different because I had to go get a load of stone. We're actually trying to get a new little office area built back there, and I had to go pick up 4,000 pounds of stone.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Luckily, there's a forklift that did that for me, but I did have to unload it. And that got in the way of my regular schedule. I actually had to declutter my schedule from my morning cardio routine, which is running 3 miles. And something I've never thought about is sometimes even the healthiest things can clutter your schedule. And even though they're healthy things, they get in the way of more important things. I know guys that are, meatheads, muscle heads, gym rats, and they will actually sacrifice time with their family to go lift weight. And overall, I think that's good, but sometimes you have to interrupt that pattern to attend a kid's birthday party, to attend a kid's school function, to get a work project done. And, I know people that won't do it. They will miss their kid's birthday party, and they'll miss their anniversary with their wife to go pump iron at the gym.
Well, see, they need to declutter their schedules because they should have time for both.
Absolutely.
What are some of the biggest objections in your work with people? I'm sure people come up with all kinds of excuses. What are some of those that you run into? Because I think in this room here, we probably are going to be guilty of all of those excuses. Probably I'll be guilty of all of those excuses.
I can't. I'll float an idea, and then the immediate response is, I can't. So then I have to try to think of, okay, well, how else could we look at this?
Something that I've actually told clients based on that phrase is, the only thing keeping you from doing this is an apostrophe T. If you just take that apostrophe T off of the sentence, I can do this. I just have to figure out how to do it. So,
gosh, Sarah, that's awesome. The apostrophe T problem.
Apostrophe T problem, yeah.
It's the apostrophe T phenomenon.
And I've definitely been guilty of the apostrophe T phenomenon.
Oh yeah. Me too. I think it's fascinating as we talk about this. It's fascinating to see how we were talking about decluttering things like schedules and homes and whatnot, and the patterns and how much that lines up with mental health, because we see that, I'm sure all of us see that here too, is you'll have somebody come with struggles and they don't even consider that things could be different. It's always been done this way. They've always thought this way, and there's never been a consideration that it could be different. It's the first time anybody's ever kind of challenged them. Well, actually, you can think different. You can declutter your thinking. I just think that's cool how it all goes together.
Yeah, and of course, it's not always comfortable.
Oh, never.
Oh, no, yeah.
Say, I think one thing I work with a lot of women, and a lot of what we talk about is, well, who else could do this, thing that you're doing every day or every week? And, so you might have to have these conversations with people in your house and say, I won't be doing this anymore. And it's on you now, and that's not always fun. So I think, we can really avoid it, but it's like a lot of things, it's worth it in the long run to have those hard conversations and to make those changes.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that I've noticed, especially when I'm working with women too, is they think, if I've already asked him once, or the kids, if I've already asked them once, why aren't they continuing to do it? Has that been your experience too? Have you had clients talk to you about, well, I've asked them to do it, but, they don't consistently do it every day.
Don't help. Yeah. So we really have to be consistent. Changing the way you've done things for many years will not happen overnight. It can take at least months, I would say.
Right.
Right.
I like to remind people that, you have spent often decades developing psychologically these patterns by which you live. Decades. Why would you think that we can reprogram those in the matter of a single session, a couple of sessions, even a handful of sessions? Because you imagine writing, my son's a lefty, with your left hand, and then all of a sudden, snap, we need you to start using your right hand. I mean, that's going to take not just a minute, as is colloquially said these days. It's going to take a whole heap of minutes, but you'll get there. You'll get there after taking a few steps. I'd like to hear about your journey, Gail, because I know that in your bio, in 2013, you say that you started the journey to make over your life from burned out, in debt, unwell, another way before you ended up sicker or divorced. And I'd love to hear, and I know our listeners would love to hear about your journey to kind of put some real life experience to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So I was kind of a mess. I was just living like many, many people do, working full time, 2 kids, house, chores, all the normal things, but it wasn't really agreeing with me. I did not feel good. I was like, is this all there is? Is this it? I'm going to do this for the next 20 years and then what? So I really wanted to make some changes, and I started seeing people just selling programs and books and things online. And I just thought, you know what? I wonder if I could do that. I wonder if I could make just enough money online to cut back at work and, maybe be a little less harried, a little less busy feeling all of the time. And so that was a goal that I set and started working toward that. And by 2016, I was doing well enough to quit my day job and work from home full time. So now I kind of help women that are on that same trajectory where they're like, okay, things need to change. And so I had to find the time to work on my side business and build up that income stream. And I just kind of kept saying, well, this is good. What could be better? And I just kept going step by step. So that's kind of my story there. And then in 2019, I wanted to start a second business doing more what I'm doing now, the coaching and different things. So that's when I really got into schedule hacking. And I was like, I need 10 hours a week to start this second business. And I had so much fun. I was like, I'm going to figure out where my time is going down to the 5-minute increments. And I really geeked out on it because I like to do that stuff. So I really looked at my schedule and I started doing some math and realizing, if I run a 20-minute errand 3 days a week, that's like 8 days.
Wow.
8 work days. And so that's what I call the time sucks, the things where we don't really realize where our time is going. And I think it's fun. I think it's fun to figure out like, what's a different way I could do this? So now I have like 1 day a week, if it's an errand, it has to go on that day, and just, different things that I have quite a bit of structure, but that structure gives me a ton of free time.
That's amazing. We had a recent podcast guest that pointed out, gave an example between Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, some of the richest people in the world. And he said the great equalizer is time. Every single one of those people have 24 hours, exactly the same amount of time allotted that we each have. And money does not create more time. The one thing money can never buy is more time. And there's actually an old scripture that says we should be redeeming the days, or redeeming the time because the days are evil. I'll get it right. meaning that time just evaporates. If you don't use it, it is the one great thing that literally spoils by evaporating, no matter how you use it. And you can use it to add value to your life, or you can just sit around and let it evaporate like some liquid. And I've certainly found that in my life. And for me, it comes when I don't schedule things. If things are important to me, I will put them on, literally, on my calendar. I have a master calendar on my external memory. I'm holding up my cell phone in the camera here. This is my external memory. And I find that if I will schedule it, and I don't schedule things in 5-minute increments, but I will schedule in 30, 20, 30-minute increments. And I'll schedule things such as, play Frisbee with my son. Mm-hmm. Do something with my wife. And some people will criticize that. I've had patients criticize that and say, oh, well, that's just not, that's no fun. That's not impromptu enough. You're taking the fun out of it. But I find that if you don't schedule it, you're really telling yourself that it has less value than other things you schedule. I tell men, look, Valentine's Day comes right about the same time every single year. Put it on your calendar. Your wife's birthday, your kid's birthday, your boss's birthday. Hey, I need some work done on my pickup truck, by the way. You can get me that for my birthday. Maybe a good detail job. But I find that psychologically, we are programming our brains to understand that this thing we're scheduling has value. Mm-hmm. And not scheduling it kind of indicates that it has less value than other things you plop on your calendar.
Yeah. And it's really setting your intentions. Mm. You know, being intentional about, like, I have a daily priority to spend quality time with my kid. So by scheduling it in, you're putting, I want to say money where your mouth is, but I don't know if that fits.
Put your calendar where your mouth is. Yeah, most people, I find, it's some of the most valuable things in their life is just, here's I don't know where this came from. It's kind of a Southern term, catch as catch can. Mm-hmm. We have a schedule for going to work. We have a schedule even for taking out the garbage. Yeah. I mean, here, the garbage guys come every Tuesday, and they don't wait on my schedule. This is when they show up. And we schedule when we take out the garbage. Now, compare those. You will schedule, whether you want to or not, when you take out the garbage, or your garbage will not be picked up. Mm-hmm. But even though you'll schedule garbage, you won't schedule your time with your child. Yeah. You won't schedule time with your spouse. You won't schedule time for your own fitness. I schedule my runs on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You could set a clock by it. I schedule when I do my resistance training, my weightlifting, or it doesn't get done. And I do that because it has value. And I encourage everybody listening, perhaps make a list of all those things. And Gail's the expert here on this, not me, but it just comes to mind that if you make a list of all those things that are important in your life and decide how long they're going to take, and then put that in a calendar. Gail, how would you recommend somebody does that? What's a good way to get started with that?
Yeah, so I would kind of observe yourself for a couple days and figure out where your time is going. Make that priority list, but then observe yourself for a few days and kind of look for those places where, a lot of us probably spend some time on social media most days, scrolling around, and often it's more time than we intended. So we can find out if what we're doing is lining up with what we say we want to do. So I think for a lot of people, there's an objection with, I don't want to be so scheduled. I don't want to feel like I have to do all these certain things at all these certain times. So I think, we can have things that we do routinely that we don't necessarily always have to do at the same time. Like I walk my dog every day, but I don't necessarily have it scheduled in a certain time block. So I think a lot of it is kind of working with your personality and figuring out what's going to work for you along the way. And so I would encourage people to try putting everything in their calendar and scheduling it, kind of systematically, and then just see how that works for you. It's all about experimenting on yourself and, trying different things. So, but I generally, I know that I have, 5 to 10 things that I routinely do every day. And so I just kind of look at, where are the times in my day where I'm going to do these different items, like I do sales activities, I walk my dog, I have certain, writing tasks that I do. And I don't necessarily do them on a time basis, but I know they're going to get done each day.
That's fantastic. There are things that I love to schedule, and that's so important. The human brain, a little bit of neuroscience here. The human brain is really engineered to develop patterns, and those patterns are sequence-based, and they're also interval-based. You do something for a set amount of time, and you do something else, and they're time-based. I would bring people's attention to haven't you found that you may get up at the same time every night? By the way, for me, it's 3 a.m., and here's a TMI alert, by the way, too much information alert, to go to the bathroom. 3 a.m., almost on the dot, because I'll look, it's 3 a.m. And there's a village in France called Plum Village, founded by the world's foremost mindfulness teacher who passed away, I think, a couple years ago, just Thich Nhat Hanh, and they ring a bell. And every time the bell rings, no matter what you're doing, you stop and you practice, I think it's 60 seconds of mindfulness. And you can get that app, the Plum Village app. It's free. Imagine that's free. And you can set a timer where it goes off every 4 hours, every 2 hours, every 1 hour, and you practice mindfulness on the dot. And believe me, guys listening, developing, promoting such patterns in your brain by scheduling the way Gail is talking about really is being brain friendly. And I have a hypothesis for you. I've not looked up the research on this, but I will. This will be a great research study, that you will actually live longer the more scheduled you are, intentionally scheduled. And what does intention means? It means I set a goal and I intend for it to happen. I'm going to devote all my resources and commitment to making this agreement with myself and assuring that it takes place. One of the healthiest parts of living is both making and keeping agreements with yourself. You'll have a healthier mind, and guess what? I really think you'll live longer. Gail, what are some early big wins? When you first started back in 2013 and you decided something needed to change, what were some of the first things when you started taking control of your life in this way that were big paybacks or big wins or even small wins for you? What are some of the things you noticed?
For full show notes and transcript of today's episode, go to therapybites.podbean.com. Individual psychological concepts are very different animals from one another. And while they are often readily observable in the wild, the Therapy Bites Art Lab Zoo affords us a unique opportunity to study them in a safe and controlled environment. Welcome to the Therapy Bites Art Lab Creature Feature. Oh, good
heavens. The nerve of that guy. The nerve of that guy. I can't believe it. I've worked so hard to put these arties in my head, and I still have this guy, this Iudi, trying to mess with my brain, and I'm just not having it. I'm not going to take it anymore. Oh, hey TBALrs, excuse me for my rant there. I am your host, Safari Sarah. Welcome to this episode's creature feature. Anyway, so I am on the hunt for Iudi. Stands for inaccurate, unrealistic thought. And, you know, he is the villain, more or less, of the tale. He's the foil to Artie. That's a literature term. He is the antithesis, the opposite, well, I'm going to stop being a thesaurus and continue with what I was talking about. He is basically what we don't want inside our brain, okay? So he encompasses all of the other creatures. The ants, automatic negative thoughts. The gnats, negative automatic thoughts. The gray herrings try to distract us from him because he knows if he can hide behind the gray herrings that he can hopefully get away with it. He can't get away with it. What we're going to do, this is the plan, okay? And, oh my gosh, those of you who are listening probably can't tell, but he just showed up. You can't hear the plan, dude, okay? You can't hear it. But anyways, he's a little red demon imp-looking thing. Got a yellow shirt with his name across it. You know, anyways. So I'm just going to go away. Alright, anyways, now, the plan, I guess I should be a little bit quieter. The plan is we are going to let Artie run this guy into the ground. Now, Artie is accurate, realistic thoughts, okay? And we are going to let Artie replace Iudi in our brains. We want our brains full of Arties, okay? So if you see Iudi, or if you identify an Iudi, use Artie to combat him and to tackle him, okay? That is the plan. But anyways, I'll let you get back to the rest of the episode, and I look forward to seeing you in the next creature feature, TBALrs. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye. Oh my gosh, I hate that guy.
Thank you for joining us for the Therapy Bites Art Lab creature feature.
You're listening to Therapy Bites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with DocHeath and the TBAL Team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
You're slipping beneath the cushions of your bobble-headed psychotherapist's couch, leaving behind empty, echoing, cushy, comforting, pseudo-psychological claptrap. Moving into a deeper dimension of your own mind, where distorted thinking, hurting, hopelessness, and regret evaporate into clarity, healing, renewed hope, and newfound resilience. That's the podcast sign up ahead. Your next stop, Therapy Bites Psych Secrets.
Hey, hurry, come here. I've got a psych secret for you. Let's correct quickly 3 anxiety myths. They're watching. Listen up. Neither psychological nor physiological anxiety is evidence of a threat to you. Let's quickly go down the list of how you can decide. Elevated heart rate, not necessarily risk. Elevated respiration, not necessarily risk. Just because you're anxious doesn't mean you're in danger. Here's a psych secret tip for today. You can practice accepting your anxiety, and the more you accept it, the less you'll struggle with it. The less you struggle with it, the more you can accept it. The more you can accept it, the more you radically accept it, the less you'll see it as a threat to you. The more you run from things in life, the more they seem to chase you. Psych secrets out.
Once again, DocHeath rips the cushions from the couch, dishes the dirt, lets the cat out of the bag, uncorks the bottle, letting the genie escape, and blows the lid off of another of the universe's psych secrets.
Live the art life. Become a TBAL Teammate Inner Circle supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/therapybites.
Here's Heath and the TBAL Team.
Yeah, I think the first thing that I really noticed is I just felt really excited again. I felt like I had something that I was working toward. And, at that time I was just working in a spa. I was doing massages and facials. And although I made a good paycheck, there wasn't really anywhere for me to go there. So that was huge to have a big dream or a big goal. And I think that's super motivating. So whether it's a a business one, or maybe you want to do something physical. My husband's always signing up for races and things like that. That keeps him motivated. Find something that's going to motivate you when you start to see progress. So I loved having something that was my own project, because I felt like at that point, like almost everything I was doing was for somebody else, which is just life when you have 2 kids. But so that was probably my earliest win. And then, from the first blog post that I published and I shared around on Facebook a little bit and started to get some feedback, I was like, you know what? I just started to gain some momentum and think, I think I can really do this. I think it was shifting from that energy of I'm the person who wants to do this to I am the person who is doing this. Mm-hmm. And that can happen with those micro habits, like a Couch to 5K program. When you do that first day of your first workout, you're not a person who's thinking about doing a 5K. You're somebody who's training to do a 5K. And that's a big energy shift, and it can shift, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about life.
That's a great point. There's a big difference psychologically to I'm going to do something versus I am doing it, being in the present moment. This is what I'm doing. And the Couch to 5K program, you guys, you can Google that, look it up. There's all kinds of programs out there similar to that, and they involve push-ups, and there's one for crunches, and there's one for, just all kinds of things. And the biggest thing is step number 1, getting started. Is Yoda, take off of Yoda, there is no, there's just take the first step. There's no second step, there's only the first step. There's no third step, there's only the first step. Some people try to think too far into step 37 before taking step number 1. Step number 1 is get up. Well, let's see. You said blogging. How do you fit in your busy schedule, putting your butt in the chair, so to speak, and getting your blogging done?
Yeah, that's one of those things that I have kind of. So, people have daily routines. We have weekly routines. One thing that I've done just recently, just in the past few weeks, is I decided I only want to do coaching calls, meetings, anything like what we're doing right now, 2 days a week. So you guys are actually my last Monday interview.
Oh, wow.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm like, that gives me, I have 5 days a week to pretty much do what I want and what my priorities are. And then I have 2 days a week where I'm like, I think it would be easier just to put all these meetings on these 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so I'm not task switching as much.
And I think that's a good example of those listening that the very best person to be in charge of your schedule is you. And you have to say no to some things. Mm-hmm. And by the way, every time you say yes to something, you're always saying no to something else. Every time you say, yes, I'm going to do that, you're actually funneling down and limiting your choices. As we tell people, you don't get to design really your life in the moment. The life you're living now, you designed that yesterday, the day before, 10 days ago, a year ago. And the life you will live a week, a year, 5 years from now, you're designing that today. How you're going to live 5 and 10 years from now is being designed now as you are listening to the sound of my voice. I'm drinking some healthy coffee right here. Some of you listeners know what I drink in my coffee. It's some pretty weird stuff. It's 7 sacred mushrooms and black maca and turmeric and black pepper extract and everything a growing boy needs. But the reason I drink that is because I'm designing my life for how it will be when I'm 70 and 80 and 90 and 137. And yep, that's the plan. The oldest living crank in the world. That's the plan. But you're designing that today, and that's all about habits. And Gail, you have some advice on creating habits. What have you found are some of the best ways to create the best habits?
Well, we've already talked about two of them, and one is to start small with the micro habits, and then another one I really like is try to think of ways to make it easier to do what you want to do. And some real simple examples of that are, setting out your workout clothes the night before, because we can get tripped up on the little things. You can't find your socks. You spend 10 minutes looking for your socks, and then you're like, oh, great. Well, now I can't go to the gym. When I was writing in 2020, I wrote and self-published 6 books.
Wow.
And so my goal was to get up and write every morning for 30 to 45 minutes. So I would set up my stuff the night before. So all I had to do was get up, pour coffee, sit my butt in the chair. And I didn't do anything else until I had done that writing for the day. So, but by having like my notes and my computer there charged up and everything ready to go, I didn't have it, I reduced the friction. For me, getting out of bed in the morning, I put my phone to where I have to get out of bed and walk to turn off my alarm. And then it's like, all right, I've taken 10 steps. I might as well carry on to the coffee pot.
I hope you guys are writing this down. If not while you're driving, but re-listen to this podcast episode when you can have pen and paper, because Gail is dropping some nuggets that will change your life. Don't put your phone at your bedside where you can easily click it off. You can go on Amazon or other platforms, and there are alarm clocks that you actually have to chase the darn things across the room. They jump up and down and bounce around, and you got to chase them across the room.
Wow.
And another good one, too, is to just buy an alarm clock so that your phone can maybe live in the kitchen. And then it's not an empty distraction first thing in the morning.
Imagine that. You don't have to take your phone to bed.
Yeah. You don't have to look at email or anything for at least an hour after you wake up. That one's hard. So that one's one I'm still working on. I'm about 50-50 with not checking my email first thing in the morning. And the other thing is, most days are not going to go as planned. There are going to be days where we don't get our workout in, or we do look at our phones for an hour in the morning. But the best thing I think to do in that situation is don't beat yourself up. Don't let a slip up become, who you are, because it's fine. Nobody's perfect. Start over the next day. Because that energy of, oh, I suck, I wasted an hour this morning looking at my phone, I'm not good at this, is not the energy that's going to help you get back on track tomorrow.
Yeah, a little neuroscience angle on that is that there's actually an area I've pointed at frequently, right above my right ear and right above my left ear. It is the part of the brain which you guys are listening to us currently. It's called the temporal lobe. But tucked in behind it, insulated behind it, is the insular cortex. And the insular cortex is the area that registers disgust, and it will register disgust about you based on what you decide to tell yourself. So, as Gail's pointing out, don't tell yourself nasty things about yourself. Even when I missed my cardio this morning, there's healthy, functional things I can tell myself about that. And when I don't, keep a workout appointment with myself, which is rare, I can still find value in it. That's not an excuse. It's the art of finding value in not getting what you want and not doing as you plan. Now, don't make a habit out of that. Keep your structure, but beating yourself up psychologically is very, very sabotaging. Let's not do that. And Gail, that's wonderful advice.
Yeah, and sometimes it's even a clue. You might just be burnt out, and you might really need to just take a day to go do something different and do something that's going to like help you recharge your battery so you can be productive, the next 5 days. I call it hitting the wall. I'm like, okay, I've hit the wall, taking a day off.
Well, and I think it's important to know when to take a break. I went to Thanksgiving dinner with my family, my brother and his family. I love my brother's family. Great. Got 2 little rowdy kids that are basically, I guess, monkeys in training because they just swing all over everything and climb under the counters. I looked up and his son was coming out from the cupboard. I thought, how'd you even get in there? But came home with the gift that keeps on giving, the flu and a sinus infection. Now, it was hard for me to not do my cardio and not do my weightlifting, but I gave myself a break because my immune system needs all the energy it can muster to heal my body, not focus on, improving slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers. And that's what I did. I took the week off. Nothing wrong with that. I've not taken a week off in a long time. It's even healthy to take time off of healthy things to just give your body a break. Now, I wouldn't do that consistently, really think through that stuff, and that's what I did. And I didn't beat myself up over it. I spent time doing other valuable things. For instance, instead of the running and working out, I did some writing, and I did spent some more time with my wife, and you can fill that with other valuable refueling things. But what are some of the things that personally, Gail, that you struggle with the most? What are some of those little gremlins that get in your way?
Oh, I would say definitely distractions, the email inbox. I like social media. I think it's something you have to try to balance in your life, but I enjoy it. So it's not something I'm like, I shouldn't do this, but it's easy to spend too much time on it. And since I work from home, I do get really distracted about, house stuff. So it's easy to spend the whole day tidying and then be like, oh, why didn't my work get done? Because you're doing something else that technically needs to be done and is productive, but is it priority? And then, it's easy to procrastinate on things that are important to do, but maybe aren't as enjoyable. Like this morning, I spent an hour and a half organizing tasks for my virtual assistant. And I've really been putting it off, but it's holding me back to not just spend that hour and a half doing those things I need to do. So it's often a lot of things that we don't feel like doing that get us to our bigger goals.
What do you think about the wisdom of doing hard things first? My wife has always recommended to me, because she started doing this when she was 6 or 7 years old. Her mother would leave her things to do, and she said, I would just do the hard things first, and then I got to play the rest of the day.
Yeah, I think that's really, really smart. That is kind of what I did this morning. And again, I think we're all different. Sometimes I save really boring tasks for when I just have zero inspiration. I'm like, I have no inspiration to write or be creative about anything. So I'm going to declutter my inbox, pay some bills. So I think that can be kind of like tuning into your energy. Like, what's going to make me feel best today? If I get all these little annoying tasks out of the way, so they're not, yelling at me anymore, or would it be working on a creative project? And I think that's one of the hardest things when you do just work for yourself and you have to choose pretty much every hour, like, what am I going to do now? That's challenging for sure.
You mentioned social media, and I'm glad you brought that one up, because I think a lot of people, myself included, tend to spend a little bit too much time on social media. How do you limit your social media time? Do you set a timer or schedule time in to look at it? What do you do that you found is useful with that?
Yeah, so when I'm going on for business purposes, like I have some posts to make, I'm going to go on here, I do set a timer. I'm like 20 minutes, because, those notifications pop up, and the next thing you know, 45 minutes have gone by. And then, if I'm on there just for personal reasons, I try to just be intentional. Like, okay, I'm going to check social media. I want to have this little like fun relaxation time, but 30 minutes seems reasonable to me usually. So I just try to be intentional about, okay, now I'm going to put the phone away and, talk to my husband and my son if they're not at their phones.
That really amazes me now that I think of it, but parents seem very willing to set time limits for their children. You can only do this for 20 minutes, watch SpongeBob for 30 minutes, play a video game for 40 minutes. But adults seem to be unwilling to set time limits for themselves. And I think that's a wonderful idea. You might call it time-limited distractions. It's okay to be distracted from whatever, but go ahead and set a timer. You've got a handy-dandy little timer on most phones. You can set it to ding-a-ling. And by the way, here's another tip. Engineer some accountability and tell your wife or, hey, even tell your kid, hey, I'm going to, dad or mom's going to be distracted here for a minute. When you hear this go off, you have permission to tell me to cut it out and get back to work. I think kids would love that. Dad, get back to work.
And there are tons of apps that can help us. I mean, this is such a big problem that there's one I use called Freedom, where if I feel like, I'm kind of getting really distracted lately, I want to just set some boundaries for myself. I can set that app to, between 9 and 5, not let me look at Amazon, social media. I could even block Gmail. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know what, I'm not strong enough to do this on my own. Those notifications keep coming and I keep getting sucked in. So I'm going to download an app and set some boundaries.
Wow. Imagine that. Self-imposed boundaries. Some of the healthiest people you'll ever meet have self-imposed boundaries.
You had brought up kind of about like setting that accountability with the app. So would you say that like support, not just when first starting, but throughout the whole process of like managing your time, like was support an important aspect of time management?
Yeah, definitely. And this is something, you could do with a friend. You could find an accountability partner. I've been in a group lately. It's just an accountability group. And every morning we say, this is what I said I would do yesterday. And this is what I got done. And this is what I'm going to do today. And so that just kind of keeps us all like, once you've told somebody else that you're going to do something, it kind of takes it to the next level because most of us don't want to be embarrassed and say, oh, I didn't do the things on my list again.
Right.
Yeah. Gail, I was looking at your books, and I have kind of a question going off in another direction here. Mm-hmm. I noticed one of them is a book on gratitude, like a gratitude journal. I love them, by the way. I give them to my clients a lot. But I wanted to ask you, what role does gratitude play in giving your life a makeover?
Oh, I mean, it's huge.
Yes.
I think it just changes your whole perspective. I think, and maybe the doc can give us the reason for this, but I think most of us kind of default to what's going wrong instead of what's going right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So being intentional about gratitude shifts our focus to what's going right. And that's, I think can improve every area of life.
Well, gratitude's a bit like a psychological hug, and there's a lot of press out there about the cuddle hormone, and I won't get into all that, but it's a neurotransmitter, and we actually create an image in our mind of who we're expressing gratitude to, and therefore it really is a mental hug, a psychological hug. The best way to get more hugs is to express gratitude in your mind for more and more people, because every time you do that, it's just like getting a hug or experiencing a hug with that person. Gratitude is a psychological hug.
That's
I
cool.
like that.
I really like that.
I like that too.
Well, we have one more thing to go, and we're going to spring this on Gail as we do all of our guests. Actually, all of our guests. Sorry for being sneaky. But I'm going to do a little bit different with Gail. Instead of pulling out a random question, a random Freudian question, and by the way, those of you watching this on YouTube see that we have Gail surrounded. She's in the middle, and we're not going to let her get away until she answers this question. But it is a bit of a psychological question, and I've kind of curated one for Gail today from the deep, dark recesses beneath the therapy couch. And you can see on the overhead here, and I've pulled it out. See, I'm waving at you from the background there. And this was curated especially for Gail. I don't think I've ever done that before. I may start doing that.
This is the first time.
But here's the question. And you can take your time and think about this. We'll cut out any pauses. And I would play the Jeopardy music, but I think it's copyrighted.
Yeah, probably.
It is.
You'll have to imagine the Jeopardy music in your head. Everybody loves Alex Trebek. Who would you say would be the most organized animal? The most organized critter? The most organized animal?
Well, I'm just going to have to say squirrels.
Yes. Yes.
And why would you say that a squirrel is the most organized critter?
Their nuts in their places, and they know where they all are.
I agree.
That's awesome.
Well, now Debbie actually has a shirt that says Squirrel Whisperer.
She does.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we can't tilt the camera, but it's I don't know, maybe I can tilt the camera. I'll see what I can do here. Squirrel Whisperer. Look at that. We don't sell those. I don't know where she got that at. Probably there's some squirrels that are making millions from selling that shirt.
Squirrel Whisperer.
I think I would agree because there's another scripture that says work while it is day because the night is coming when nobody can work. And I think Gail gave us lots of amazing tips today to organize your life now, and that will create more opportunities for you later. Gail, it has been such a pleasure having you here today. As I said earlier, the time has just flown. Hope to have you back sometime. And you guys listening to this, play this over and over again. Take control of your schedules, declutter, and use some of this great advice on the psychology of schedule hacking. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Welcome to On the Couch and Off Our Rocker with Dr. Ima Freudnot, where we review our special guest Therapy Bites Art Lab episode, Psychomalarkey Scale Assessment Results. That's PMS for short. Our own decluttering diva, Ms. Gail Wood's PMS performance places her in the 93rd percentile, spick and span end of the PMS's CFS, Clutter-Free Scale. This indicates a hyperhygienically high degree of spotlessness in our squeaky clean queen's cortical crevices and a tidy tendency towards laundered living. Overall, Ms. Gail Wood's PMS psychosillymetric assessment results present a picture of an individual preponderantly predisposed to a proclivity for desperately disposing of disorder and disarray, but who tames these unsmudged inundations of implicit inculcating impulses through a tempest of teaching, training, and tutoring, a torrent of desperate disorganizers. This sparkling soul likely has a propitious prognosis of perpetual ship-shaping in the near future until the sparkling, speckless features of her psyche have been psychomologically analyzed and exercised. It is my considered conclusion that Ms. Gail would be prescribed no less than an 850 milligram QAM dose of euclinolin ER and a 350 milligram PRN dose of De-Cluttered to quell any conceivable contaminating cognitions. Dr. Ima Freudnot, Chief Shrinkstigator, Therapy Bites Art Lab. Grab some of this episode's guest merchandise, specially designed to help keep this episode's message top of mind in your life. Don't forget friends and family members who could use an Art Lab mental boost too. Just go to therapybites.myshopify.com.
Hey, T-Ballers, thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the T-Ball Team. Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Welcome, T-Ballers. Do you sometimes self-sabotage and get in your own way? Are you ever lost in the laundry of your own limitations? Well, hold on to your socks, both of them that is, because we're streaming a couple of sock-sationally successful guys into the Art Lab to help you sock it to those self-limiting beliefs. Join us as Mark X. Cronin and John Cronin, co-founders and sock ambassadors of the world's largest sock choice store, John's Crazy Socks, two guys responsible for clothing the toes of presidents and pop stars alike, share some yarns and their own sock-footed secrets of success. Beware, there'll be challenging thinking ahead, T-Ballers. But it just might change your life today, starting with your socks. So leave those socks at the door, because it's socks only in the Art Lab today, because we have a sensationally socksalicious episode in store for you.
Government legal gobbledygook. Therapy Bites is not intended as a diagnostic or as an alternative to professional clinical treatment. Resources and advice are for information and entertainment purposes only. Brought to you by... Someone saying things you don't like? Tape that nagging loudmouth shut. Government-approved speech tape. Gas tape. Now available at your local hardware store. Therapy Bites Art Lab is not an approved, endorsed, authorized, butt-kissing affiliate of the United States Special Offense Assessment Police. SOAP for short. Warning. Consumption of Therapy Bites Art Lab content by Kool-Aid drinking, stinking, thinking, social media, pseudo-psychological pushing, wacky woke, anti-free speech, mumbo-jumbo advocates may cause spontaneous internal skull combustion, stomach discomfort, and or laxative effects. Allergy warning. Therapy Bites is manufactured in a facility that challenges nutty distortions, processes nuggets of accurate, realistic thinking, and life-affirming beliefs. This is the audio version of the legal fine print. Why are you still listening to this when you can catch the next great episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab with a good friend or family member? Really? Are you still there? This is getting silly. Move on to the next psychologically thrilling episode of the best advice on the net. No copay required.
Me eat copay.
Yeah, with Dr. Heath and the T-Ball Team. Go ahead, don't be podgoraphobic. Scoot, scoot, scoot. On to the next episode.